knock on the door sometimes. That there aren't still nights where an old familiar fear creeps in, where I lie awake wondering if I'm enough, if this is real, if I'm allowed to hold on to something this good. Those nights still come. But here's the difference. Here's the thing that has changed completely, permanently, irreversibly. Before you, on those nights, I was alone with that fear. I had no one to reach for, no warmth on the other side of the dark. And now I know you're there. Even when I don't reach for you, I know you're there. And somehow just knowing that is enough to get me through. You asked me once, softly, almost like you were afraid of the answer, whether I was happy. And I smiled and said yes, and moved on, because I didn't know yet how to tell you the whole truth. The whole truth is this: I am not just happy. I am something I had completely given up on being. I am at peace. I am someone who looks at his own life without flinching. I am someone who believes, finally, after so long, that he deserves the love he's receiving. And that is entirely because of you. Entirely. I want you to carry that with you. I want you to know that somewhere in the middle of just being yourself, just loving me in that easy, unconditional way you do, you gave me back to myself. And I will never, as long as I live, take that for granted. There's still so much I want to say to you, so much I've been collecting in quiet moments, in the spaces between words, in the way I feel when I watch you, when you don't know I'm watching. Things about the future. Things about what I want. Things about the exact shape of the life I imagine, when I imagine it with you in it. And I'm going to tell you all of it, every last word of it. But not tonight. Tonight I just needed you to know this. Tonight I just needed you to understand where I came from, what I carried, and what, or rather who, finally made me put it down. Because you should know the full picture. You should know that what you see when you look at me, this person who loves you, who chooses you, who looks at you like you are the most extraordinary thing that has ever happened to him, is not something that was always there waiting. It was built, slowly, painfully, and then gently, tenderly rebuilt, by you, without you even knowing you were doing it. You looked at the broken version of me, and you didn't flinch. You didn't try to fix me. You just loved me, and that love, your love, was the only thing that was ever going to work. So baby, if you're listening to this and you feel something stirring in your chest right now, something warm and a little aching, and maybe a little overwhelming, I want you to know that's exactly what I feel every single time I think of you. Every time, without exception. And there is something else, something I've been working up to this whole time. Something that's been sitting at the edge of every sentence I've said tonight. Something I need you to hear before I lose the courage to say it out loud. Because the truth is, I've been standing at the edge of this moment for weeks now. Maybe longer, maybe since that first time you looked at me like I was worth looking at. Really looked at me past all the walls and the carefully constructed version of myself I put out into the world. You looked past all of that. And I don't know if you realize how completely that undid me. How it took everything I had built to protect myself and made it feel unnecessary. Like armor I had been wearing so long I forgot it was heavy, until you made me feel safe enough to finally, slowly, take it off. And I need you to understand something before I say what I'm about to say. I need you to understand that I am not someone who speaks easily. Not about the things that matter. Not about the things that live deep down in the quiet places I don't let most people anywhere near. I learned a long time ago that saying the real things out loud, the vulnerable, unguarded, completely honest things, gives someone the power to hurt you in a way that nothing else can. And I spent years protecting myself from that. Years building a version of myself that was warm enough to be liked but closed enough to be safe. And then you came along and made me want to be brave again. You made me want to risk it. And that right there is something that has only ever happened once before in my life. And that time it nearly broke me completely. So you have to understand the weight of what it means that I'm doing this again. That I'm standing here emotionally bare, telling you things I have never said to another living person, trusting you with the softest parts of me. That is not something I do. That is not something I was sure I would ever be able to do again. And yet here I am, because of you, only because of you. I think about the night everything shifted for me. Not the night I realized I liked you. That happened early, almost immediately, and I spent a long time pretending it wasn't happening. I'm talking about the night I realized this was different. This was the kind of thing that changes the direction of your life. The kind of thing you look back on years later and say that was the moment. That was where everything turned. Do you know what you were doing that night? You were doing nothing remarkable, nothing grand. You were just being yourself, completely and unself-consciously yourself. And you said something small, something you probably don't even remember saying, and I felt it land in the middle of my chest, like it had always belonged there. Like some part of me had been waiting my whole life to hear exactly that, from exactly you, in exactly that tone of voice. And I went home that night, and I sat with it for a long time, just sat with the feeling, turning it over slowly, trying to figure out what it was, because it didn't feel like anything I had felt before. It didn't have that frantic, anxious energy that I used to confuse with love. It didn't make me want to chase or perform or prove anything. It just made me feel still, calm in this deep, steady way, like standing on solid ground after years of trying to keep my balance on water. And I remember thinking to myself, very quietly, that I was in serious trouble, the best kind of trouble a person can be in, because I knew even then that you were going to matter. I knew that I wasn't going to be able to keep this at a comfortable distance, the way I had been doing with everyone else for years. I knew that you were going to get in, all the way in, and that there was nothing I was going to be able to do to stop it. And honestly, I didn't want to. That was the most surprising part. For the first time in a very long time, I didn't want to protect myself from someone. I wanted to let you in. I wanted to open every locked room and say, here, look at all of it, even the ugly parts, especially the ugly parts, and just let me see if you stay. And you stayed. God, you stayed. And you didn't just stay, you made yourself at home, not in an intrusive way, not in a way that felt like invasion. You just settled in, gently, like you belonged there. Like the space inside me had always been shaped exactly like you. And I don't know how to explain that to someone who hasn't felt it. I don't know how to make you understand what it means to have spent years feeling like you're too complicated, too layered, too hard to love fully, and then to find someone who looks at all of that complexity and doesn't feel overwhelmed, who actually leans in closer, who actually wants more of it. You wanted more of me, more than I was offering, more than I thought I was allowed to give. Do you remember how you used to ask me questions, real questions, not the surface level ones, but the ones that go underneath everything, and the way you'd wait, patiently, genuinely patient for the answer. You never rushed me. You never made me feel like my hesitation was a problem. You just waited. And in that waiting, in that extraordinary patience you somehow had for me, even when I wasn't making it easy, I learned something about myself that I hadn't known before. I learned that I actually had things to say. That buried under all that careful silence and strategic distance was a person with things to say and feelings to feel and love to give. So much love to give, and he had just been waiting for someone worth giving it to. That person was waiting for you. And here's where it gets complicated. Here's the part I've been quietly wrestling with, the part that lives right next to all the warmth and the beauty and the gratitude. Because loving you, really loving you, the way I have come to love you, completely and without the protective layer I used to keep between myself and everyone else, loving you like this is the most wonderful thing I have ever felt, and also the most terrifying. Not because of you. You have never given me a single reason to be afraid, but because of how much I have to lose now. Because I have crossed the point where losing you would be something I could simply recover from. I am past that point. I have been past that point for a long time now. And living with that, living with the knowledge that someone has become that essential to you, requires a kind of courage that nobody talks about. A quiet, daily kind of courage. Choosing to be open when every old instinct is telling you to close. Choosing to trust when trust has hurt you before. Choosing to stay present in something beautiful when your history has taught you that beautiful things can be taken away. I choose it. Every single day I choose it. I choose you. And I want you to really hear that. Not as a romantic